Hey guys, it's Phil coming back at you with another video! Today, I'm back, I'm excited, I'm pumped up. Hopefully everyone's doing well, practicing self-care, not letting one thought, one situation, one person take them outside of what they know to be true, and doing the next right thing. You're doing self-care, and you're not beating up on yourself. You're treating yourself like somebody that you care about to keep doing the next right thing to become the best possible version of yourself. And I know 43 people did just that, because that's how many people went in the exam, kicked it directly in the chest, and got the job done since my last video. And they are as follows: Faith C, Kristen J, Katie L, Robin C, Stephanie C, Paige T, David C, Dustin S, Candace R, Jessica H, Lindy L, Sarah M, Stephanie E, Mariah F, Juan P, Lonnie T, Andrea M, Tanya BL, Sarah M, Maggie Z, Lysandria B, Hope S, Francie K, Michael P, Stephanie J, Megan C, Erica V, Constance K, Elma M, Samantha F, Kara W, Toshia S, Veronica P, Shanika H, Stephanie C, Hannah G, Alyssa G, Jessica T, Tony J, Casey Z, Elaine B, Brianna O, and Christiel L. And I'm so excited, man, because so many people on that list, it was not their first time. They were doing other programs, they were doing different situations, doubting themselves, beating themselves up, tearing themselves down, and being like, man, Phil, I don't even think I'm ever going to be able to pass the exam. Is social work the right move for me? Should I just give up? Should I do a different thing? And is this even something I should continue doing? And every single person had to double down, forgive themselves, give themselves grace to run the race, to go in the exam, kick it directly in the chest to get the job done. If you've been repping and rocking with me and you went in the exam, kicked it directly in the chest and got the job done as well, you can send me an email at berda24@gmail.com and I'll give you a shout out as well. And if you're like, man, Phil, I want to rep and rock with you as well, the easiest way to do so is to attend the Sunday study groups or the Thought-Provoking Thursdays, because it's an easy way to get information as well as to build yourself up and to get practice, not just memorizing anything, but breaking things down and understanding to break down questions, to go in the exam, kick it directly in the chest to get the job done. And the next study groups are as follows: 8-6, meds and DSM-5, so going over the medications, both generic and brand names. Not ways to memorize any of them, but ways to actually recognize and apply and understand how you can actually see them inside of questions, and then going over the diagnosis related to those and going over practice questions at the tail end. The next one after that is 8-13, human developmental theory, so going over Erickson, Piaget, and Kohlberg. And again, not ways to memorize any of them, but ways to actually be able to recognize and apply them to actual practice questions to have a better understanding of what those would look like. The next one after that is 8-20, research, program development, and evaluation, so going over research, the types of research, different methods that you can see within research, going through different concepts that people get tripped up about research, the steps of program development, tearing it apart, and then doing program evaluation, and then going through practice questions related to those. The next one after that is 8-27, practice questions, so going over the types of questions that you can see on the exam, going over different myths that people spread about the exam, going over the 6-step process that I recommend every single person to keep in mind as they're breaking down questions, going over tips that I find most helpful, and then going through practice questions. And as I always say, do not come to these sessions expecting to answer every single question correct, because a lot of times people will come into my sessions and be like, you know what, I'm trying to get them all right, or man, Phil, I didn't get as many right as I want to. Should I reschedule my exam? Absolutely not, because the questions I construct tend to be more difficult than the ones on the actual exam. So they're not trying to have the phrase of like practice makes perfect, but practice makes permanent. And the next one after that is 9-3, DSM-5 children, so going over different children diagnoses, not ways to memorize any of them, but ways to be able to differentiate the diagnoses as well as the disorders from one another, and then going through practice questions related to those. And if you want any information related to the study groups, you can send me an email at berda24@gmail.com or click the link down below in the description, which is the view more under the title, or go to my calendar at philinthegaps.as.me, and you'll be able to register for whatever sessions you want, as well as we are continuing to do the Thought-Provoking Thursdays. So the Thought-Provoking Thursdays are sessions where we're strictly going over practice questions, application and reasoning questions to give you more practice and better understand what your process is, how you're getting the answers correct or incorrect. And the next Thought-Provoking Thursday sessions are as follows: 8-10, 8-17, 8-24, and 8-31. And with all of the sessions, they're recorded. So if you're not able to attend the sessions live, or if you have to leave and come back, it's 100% possible to get the recording as well as the materials to review at your own leisure. And if you want any information related to the Thought-Provoking Thursdays or the Sunday study groups, you can send me an email at berda24@gmail.com or click the link down below in the description, which is the view more under the title, or go to my calendar at fillinthegaps.as.me, as well as I still do offer individual tutoring sessions. So if you want to directly interact with me, understand what's going on with your process, break down questions, break down different concepts, it's 100% possible to be able to do so. If you want information related to that, send me an email at berda24@gmail.com, or click the link down below in the description, which is the view more under the title, or go to my calendar at fillinthegaps.as.me, as well as the next one-day course is going to be this Saturday, 8/5, going over multiple different topics. And the one-day course has been the most successful thing that I've ever done, because it, one, gives you the most amount of time with me, two, gives you a mixture of different topics, as well as it goes through the process that I recommend every single person to go through as they're breaking down questions, and it goes through difficult practice questions. So if you're feeling unmotivated, you're failing the exam and you're not sure what to do, or, man, Phil, I always get in between two answers, the one-day course is what I would recommend that you start with to give yourself an idea of where you're coming from and where you want to go. The one-day course is going to be 11 a.m. Eastern time until they kick us out. They can't kick us out. I'm the host, and that session typically is 12, 13, 14 hours long, and if you're not able to stay the entire time, it's 100% possible to receive the recording as well as the materials. And the one-day course is going over the tips that I find most helpful for people to go in mind as they're preparing for it, to go in the exam, kick it direct on the chest to get the job done. The most common reasons why people fail the exam, because what better way to understand what not to do than to understand and learn from the people that have not been successful, going over a mixture of topics: subpoena versus court order, referral versus supervision, operant and conditioning, the stages of community organizing, the personality disorders, the medications, the acronym, safety, feelings, assess, refer, educate, advocate, facilitate, and intervene, going over the 6-step process that I recommend every single person keeps in mind as they're breaking down the questions, and then going through difficult practice questions at the tail end. And as I always say, do not come to the session expecting to get every single question correct, because the questions I construct typically are more difficult than the ones on the actual exam, and they're trying to have you understand what's your process, what you're doing, what you're not doing, and understand, so that way you can learn and earn and grow to become the best possible version of yourself. And if you want any information related to the one-day course, send me an email at berda24@gmail.com, or click the link down below in the description, which is the view more under the title, or go to my calendar at fillinthegaps.as.me, as well as for those that do not know, Audible's continue to partner with me on my YouTube videos and my podcast. So if you want to support me as well as support them, then go to my Audible affiliate link at www.audibletrial.com/fillinthegaps. Sign up for the 30-day free trial. It's the easiest way to support me, and it costs you absolutely nothing. Audible's an easy way to get information on the go. So if you're busy like me and you still want to grow and become the best possible version of yourself, or if you're an auditory learner just like myself, Audible's an easy way to do so. And again, if you want to support me, go to my Audible affiliate link at www.audibletrial.com/fillinthegaps. Sign up for the 30-day free trial, and I appreciate every single one of you guys that have done that already. And there are a couple of books that I'd recommend if you're not sure what book that you should get with your free trial: The Alchemist, The Archer, UOU, and Outliers. Each of them have different lessons and blessings that are going to help you progress both personally and professionally to become the best possible version of yourself. And if you haven't already, hit the thumbs up down below next to the title. That's an easy way to support me. Please hit the thumbs up button down below next to the title, because it allows for other amazing social workers just like you to find my videos as well. Leave a comment down below about something you're going through. If you went in the exam, kicked it directly in the chest, got the job done, or just anything, because I don't know about anyone, but I read the comments and I try to respond to them as fast as I possibly can. Sometimes it's faster than others as well. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button down below, hit the bell notification next to it, because it'll send you an email every single time that I upload a video. And if you haven't already, check out my podcast, Fill in the Gaps, on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, and Spotify, because that's another way to get information that is going to help you become the best possible version of yourself. And from the bottom of my heart, appreciate every single one of you guys that allows me to be able to do this. And I can't say it enough, man. It's amazing how many people have repped and rocked with me, gone on the exam, kicked it directly in the chest, got the job done, but also people that have not believed in themselves or have not had faith in themselves, and then they listen to the videos or they engage in the study groups or at any capacity, and then they're just like, you know what? I blew myself away and I wasn't sure if I was ever going to be able to do this, but now I went in the exam, kicked it directly in the chest, and got the job done, and now I've been sentenced to a life sentence of living the life that I want to see for myself. So it's always amazing for me. And before I let you guys go, and as you guys know, there's a lot of new transitions and a lot of things that I've been going through. Like, if you haven't noticed, the background is different. So me and my wife moved into a house, and that process was a long thing of moving out of the apartment and doing all these things, and then trying to get acquainted to the new environment and being like, man, what are the changes and things that I need to make, but also just trying to balance everything and not entirely go insane or do anything, because I always like to bring what I'm going through to you guys. And throughout all these different things of like the new transition, for those that don't know, like I I didn't grow up living in a house. So getting a house and being able to show my family that we have one now, and also just having all these different changes, it's just crazy to me, because when you first start, like if you watch some of my older videos, man, that was the first apartment with like the blanket in the back, and then the second one was with my roommate, and now we just have a new place. But also it doesn't allow for me to let go of the things of what I've been through or where I started. So as I'm thinking through all this stuff, what came to me is look in the dark to find the spark to keep going, because it's not the lessons and blessings that make everything worth it. It's your starting point and what those things mean for you that derive the meaning. So for example, if somebody grew up in a house, or if they know a bunch of people that have houses and all this stuff, it's not going to mean as much to them as it would mean to someone like me that grew up in a trailer, that did not have a lot of privilege, and that is now having the lessons and blessings happen now. So what I was thinking about is look in the dark to find the spark to keep going. And as long as you continue going, it is inevitable you will continue to grow. And that's what you're always hear me say, like, don't just go through things, grow through them. And growth is the product of everything that you've been through. Therefore, you need to embrace where you came from, not just where you want to go. Not this is the home run, this is the blessings, this is what I wanted to see, this is what I hope it to feel like. But you need to understand that it's a product of where you came from. So therefore, you need to embrace where you came from to go to the spaces and places you deserve. And that doesn't always mean that you're sacrificing that yourself. It doesn't always mean that you have to always serve everyone else. It doesn't mean that if somebody doesn't believe that what you're doing is right, or if you're beating up on yourself, or you're tearing yourself down, that you're not where you're supposed to be. And I was talking to somebody, they're like, man, Phil, I failed the exam and I'm doubting myself. I'm beating myself up. I'm not feeling like I'm a good social worker, or I think my coworkers are better than me, or this other person over here, or this other person over here. And throughout that process, you always hear me say, like, man, why do you want to do this? But a lot of times we have to really understand what's the purpose of what we're doing even before we get into the game. And what I mean by that is a lot of times people are like, you know, I just want to pass this exam to prove to myself that I'm good enough. Or, man, I want to pass this exam so I can get this. But what's the purpose of what you're doing to lead yourself there? Like, what are you going to do when you get licensed? What are you doing in order to prepare for that? And if you get the result of passing the exam, but at the core of it, you don't think that you're good enough, at the core of it, you don't think that you deserve it, at the core of it, you're still comparing yourself to someone else, and if at the core of it, you still are doubting and thinking somebody's going to think you're an imposter, or if at the core of it, you're still saying, I don't even know what it even means for me, or, man, maybe I got lucky, or, man, I don't know what I'm doing. But again, you have to really ask yourself, what's the purpose for why you're doing it? But at the end of the day, you have to dig deeper and repair the stuff. That's what I was saying. You need to look into the dark. As social workers, we ask our clients all the time to look at their trauma, look at their past experiences, look at the things they're not always good at, look at the things that they're good at. But at the end of the day, as humans, we tend to have this one-track mind of, if I don't have a highlight reel automatically going in the background, if I don't have all these lessons and blessings that I can show to people, or if somebody's challenging me and I'm going to cite all of the growth that I've made, or all of the accomplishments that I've made, or all the success that I've had, I'm taken away from my entire story. And that's why I'm always a huge advocate of, like, I'm not going to come on these videos and be like, you know what? Everything is great. Everything is awesome. That's why I try to take you on the successes, but also the failures, or also the things that have not been going well, to show you that as a human, you have to own both sides of your story. But if you don't, and you only prefer to tell the success, you're taken away from what it took for you to get to that moment. So that's what I'm telling you. Look into those dark spaces and places. Because if you don't address those things, or if you don't acknowledge those things, but if you acknowledge and know they're there, but don't do anything with it, it's now an active choice to not do something different. And that, it doesn't always have to be like the darkest things that you have, but you failing the exam is something you should be looking at, but you shouldn't be coming overcritical, and you shouldn't be going black and white thinking, and you shouldn't be just jumping to conclusions and tearing the entire process down. Because unless you answered 0 questions right on the exam, you have some capabilities, you have some competencies, you have something. But if you don't value what you have, or you don't acknowledge the processes you went through, you're not going to think that you're closer than you've ever been to becoming the best possible version of yourself. And that doesn't mean that you're just going to be complacent and take it easy. But if you're not treating yourself as you would a client you're working with, we have a problem. And what I mean by that is, A lot of us, when we're working with clients or when we're helping people that we know, we're kinder to them. We're building them up. We're listening. We're validating. We're acknowledging. But when it comes to us, it's like hard mode, do it. And if you don't do it, you suck. You're not getting anywhere that you're supposed to be. So that's my push, is look into the dark areas and don't let your successes or don't let the things that you want to have as highlight reels take away from what it took for you to get to that highlight reel. Because again, as long as you keep going, you're going to continue growing. But if you never look at where you came from, what is different, how much progress you've made, you're going to continue being like, if I don't hit the home run, I suck. But was the home run the goal? Maybe you being able to hit the ball, or maybe you being able to look at something differently. Maybe you not being able to flip the table on yourself is growth. So that's what I'm saying is you have to partialize your own goals. Partialization is cutting things down into smaller pieces. But a lot of us, we're not thinking about the partialization for ourselves. But when it comes to a client, we're willing to cut them as much slack as we possibly need to. But when it comes to us, we're calling ourselves a slacker. We're saying you're not good enough. You're not doing the right things. And if you're like, Phil, I don't even know if I can pass this exam. I don't even know if I should be a social worker. Man, I don't even know if this is for me. Well, let me ask you this. If you are going to continue thinking about taking the exam, and if you're going to continue trying to go into the exam, or if you're going to continue communicating about the exam, at some capacity, you think you can do it. So if you really thought you couldn't do it, then you wouldn't think about the exam. You wouldn't think about what can come after the exam. You wouldn't be telling people, or you wouldn't even have it in your heart to go in the exam. Because truly, if it was impossible, your mind would protect you and say, I'm not even going to do it anymore. It'd be like if somebody's like, you know what? We need to pick up this 1,000-pound stone in order to make room for this other thing. We don't have a crane. We don't have people to help us lift it. So if somebody's like, man, Phil, you need to move this stone in order to make this the thing. I'm going to go over and maybe try to lift the stone. But if I'm like, bro, I'm about to kill myself if I lift this stone, I'm not going to think about lifting the stone because it's not something I can do by myself. But if I had help, or if I had assistance, or if I made accommodations or adaptations, I may be able to do it. But if you're in that mode of, I don't need accommodations, I don't need assistance, I don't need to do things, I'm independent on my own, you need to remind yourself how you got here. Because in order to get a degree, you didn't do it yourself. And not to take away from your accomplishments, but hear me out. In order for you to get a degree, you had to work with an institution or a university in order for them to certify that what you've been doing is the right thing. And if you have multiple degrees, you have your master's degree, or you have multiple different degrees outside of a bachelor's of social work or master's of social work, you didn't do that on your own. Not to say you didn't write the papers and take the exams and all those things, but in order for you to get to that space and place, you had support. You had people looking around you. You had guidance. You had information that was provided to you. Therefore, if you're trying to do this independent, or if you're trying to do it solo, you need to remind yourself that the way that humans are supposed to operate is by assisting other individuals. They're supposed to be collaborating. They're supposed to be reaching out for assistance. But if you're not able to reach out for assistance for yourself, or you're stigmatizing or demeaning the assistance, or you're saying, you know what, I should have already done this before, or man, I need to be doing all these different changes. There are some things that you might have tried that you haven't let go of yet. And you have to be willing to say, you know what, I did the best that I thought with what I had and knew, or what I could have done at that point, but I cannot measure myself in this moment with advanced information in the past, because in the past I didn't have that information. So that's my push for you, is if you're beating up on yourself, you're tearing yourself down, you're degrading yourself, you're shaming yourself, you need to ask yourself, what do I need to solve, or what do I need to heal in order to give myself the ability to continue progressing forward? So again, look in the dark areas to find the spark to keep going. So if you're lacking motivation, you're tearing yourself down, you're pushing this stuff off, there's likely something in your past that's telling you, brah, you probably can't get this done. And whether it's feedback from other people, whether it's past exam attempts, whether it's a previous boss, whether it's a current boss, whether it's an occupation, whatever that is, identify it, locate it, and allow for yourself to get a spark to keep going. So as long as you continue going, it's inevitable you're going to grow. But if you're not examining who was I yesterday, who was I a month ago, who was I 2 months ago, 3 months, 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 year, 5 years, you're never going to be able to recognize where you're at. Because I always say, and it's kind of a funny one, but bear with me, positivity is like your nose. Unless you focus on it, you're not going to see it. So unless you're focusing on the growth and progress you're making, you're not going to be able to see it as much as somebody around you. But if you're not used to accepting feedback from other people, or if you're not willing to accept the positivity that other people are telling you, you're never going to be able to recognize the growth anyway. Because somebody can be like, man, you're killing the game. You're doing something different. But if you don't believe the people around you, you're still going to think about who you were in X amount of time, but you are different because growth is the product of everything you've been through. Therefore, you need to embrace where you came from to go to the spaces and places you deserve. So if you're doing self-care and you're doing all of these things, but then at the end of the day, you're still feeling drained and tearing down, are you doing the right things? Because, and what I mean by that is self-care is a maintenance process. But at the end of the day, if there's a deeper issue, we need to tear the entire car apart and understand what's the core issue here. Am I overworked? Am I not dedicating time to things that are important to me? Is this something that I'm just kind of supplementing? And if that's the case, you need to make space for the things that are going to serve you versus making you question what you actually deserve. So if you really thought you couldn't do this, or if you really thought it was impossible, then you wouldn't even be thinking about the exam. You wouldn't even be thinking about that job. You wouldn't even be thinking about serving that client population. So that's what I'm telling you is, in order for you to get experience, you must experience something at some capacity. But if you're trying to expect yourself to be an expert on the first day, bro, you're going to be sadly mistaken. And that's not because I don't think that you're not uniquely gifted and talented, but I think as a society and as a profession, we demand perfection too soon. We demand proficiency and being an expert way too soon when we have to go through each step in order to get the experience needed to unlock that ability to identify the competency and competence in order to be competent further along in the future. And a lot of us need to be open and willing to take more information in. So again, you may have failed the exam. I'm not taking that away from you. But at the same time, you need to dissect it, analyze it, and assess what happened in the exam. What strategies and techniques did I use? What was I doing? What environment was I in? What were all the factors that led up to that? So that way you have a well-informed picture versus, you know what, failed the test, I suck, it's out. Because if you're at that point, you got to be willing to understand that you would be willing to give your client grace, you'd be willing to give your friend grace, you'd be willing to give your partner grace, you'd be willing to give whoever in your life grace. But when it comes to us, we're like, you know what? Take them down and take them behind the barn. And that's what I'm telling you is, if you're in that mode of, I'm not feeling like I can get this done, I'm not sure what I'm supposed to be doing, my encouragement would be to take some time, analyze, dissect, but also be honest and open. What are some things that I know that I've been ignoring? What are some things that I know that I need to address? Or what are some things that I know weren't as helpful that I need to now get out of my life? So that's what I'm telling you is, you need to be kinder to yourself, but also in order to get that kindness, you need to recognize where you came from, what efforts you put in, what are the things that you've been doing, but also what are the things that you've been putting off or not doing in order to get yourself into the spaces and places and address the issues that are most important at this given moment. So that's what I'm telling you is, and again, a lot of transitions make me reflect a lot more and unpacking a lot of this stuff and understand where and what it took to get here. So that's what I'm telling you. Don't take the beauty of the moment, but don't forget what it was like to create this moment. Don't forget what it took for you to dream to be here. And now that you're walking the path of being where you always wanted to be, don't take away from that joy. Don't let the exam, don't let a person, don't let a thought, don't let a situation or anything take you outside of what you know to be true. So that's what I'm telling you. Continue going, continue doing the next right thing, but also if you know that something's not right, don't continue beating down the hole or don't force yourself into a situation that you know that's not going to serve you any longer. So that's what I'm telling you. Keep doing the next right thing. Keep becoming the best possible version of yourself. And if you need anything from me, as I always say, drop me a shout, send me an email at berda24@gmail.com. The rest of this video is somebody that winning the exam kicked it directly in the chest and got the job done on their 4th attempt. And then somebody that has taken the exam multiple times, they're not sure where they should go or what some changes that they need to be making. So it's me walking them through that process. And as I always say from the bottom of my heart, appreciate every single one of you guys. You need anything, drop me a shout, send me an email at berda24@gmail.com. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, hit all the buttons and leave some feedback and leave some comments. Hope to see you in the one-day course on Saturday. Hope to see you in the Sunday study groups, individual tutoring, thought-provoking Thursdays, or at any capacity you need anything. I'm going to try my best to give you guys everything that I got. And now that I'm more acquainted to the room and all this stuff, I'm going to try my best to get back to regular things so that way I'm giving as much as I got. And that's why I said, from the bottom of my heart, appreciate every single one of you guys. I love you guys. You need anything, drop me a shout, send me an email. But if not, take care, be safe, keep building yourself up, keep doing the next right thing. Do not let one thought, one situation, one person take you outside of what you know to be true. I'm getting out of here, guys. I'll see you guys in the next video. And peace out, guys.
Hi, I passed my ASWB clinical exam and would like to share.
Hi. Oh, hi. How are you?
I'm doing
Um,
well. So, yeah,
I
tell me
am
who
good.
you are, what exam you took, and how was it part of the process?
I took the ASWB Clinical Exam, and I'm in Orlando. I mean, I'm in New York right now. I just landed, but it was in Florida. And my process. Okay, that was a long, long, long process. So I started. So I studied like for almost 2 years. The first time I went to take the exam, I just went to take it. I was not ready. I knew I wasn't going to pass the exam. Though I did have this little hope that maybe I could, but no, I didn't. So I was not ready at all. But before that, I have purchased the ASWB practice exam, which is like 80 something dollars. And then I purchased the pocket prep. Then I studied the handbook. Then I purchased the TDC, and I took this exam. I'm sorry, I get very nervous when I'm doing this. I think if you remember me, I'm a mess. I took this exam 4 times. I passed the exam on my 4 attempts. So my first time, like I said, I was not ready at all. I just went there. I was a nervous wreck. The second time, after I studied for like a year, um, and I studied the handbook and the pocket prep and the um the flashcard and all this material. I went there and I failed that again. Um, then I purchased the TDC, and I thought I was ready. I thought I was ready, and I failed the test by 2 points. That was very hard. Then, um, 3 months into the exam, I ran into your material on YouTube. And at first, you gave me anxiety that you had no idea. I was so anxious when I heard you speaking, and I'm like, oh my God. And I said to myself, I'm going to give you 3 more seconds before I delete you. But then something says, stay there. And then you said a magic word that really changed everything for me. And that was, don't let anyone define you or tell you how you need to study for this exam. You have to be your own self and know what works for you. Maybe studying for 1 minute is, I mean, not 1 minute, for 10 minutes is all you need, or half an hour, but don't let anyone define you. And I just listened to you, and it was everything that I needed to hear. Because from that point up to that point, all I was doing was following someone else's um um suggestion to how I should study. And I know for me to pass something, I have to make it my own. I have to believe in what I'm doing. I wasn't believing on this test. I wasn't believing on the process. I was just going through the emotion. I wanted to pass the test, but really was more about passing the test, not making it part of me, something really truly something bigger than just passing a test. So after I heard you saying that, I listened to you again while you were explaining the question, how to go through the question, and anxiety came back again. And I'm like, oh my God, this question is so hard. Why is this question so hard? So, but I still stay with you. Like, I'm like, this is good because I understood at the end of the question why the mentality or how you break the question. I was clear on that. So next day I went to Walmart and I bought a studying board. I don't know if you remember when we had the one-to-one, how I had my whole entire room with material, because that's the only way I can learn. I cannot learn by just reading something. I have to break it down and make it like a picture and make it fun. So from that day on, studying became fun. I will, I will spend an hour or whatever time I was there. And then if I had to go somewhere during my driving, I would remember. So I started remembering, even though I knew the material, I couldn't put it out of myself. It's like I knew all this, but until that point that I made it part of me, like it was fun to get up and study. I was looking forward to do this and to make it through. Um, that's I I have to break things down. I cannot just see something. I have to make it that it makes sense to me. So then I had my mantra. Every day I read the same mantra before I started studying, that I could do it, that I knew I could do it, and I was going to do it. Then you said something else. You said that it did not matter how much you studied, how much you knew, you have 50% of passing this test, and it did not define you or meant anything against you. It's just the way that it could have been. There's no, as much as you know, you have to know that there's the possibility that yes, you might fail this test, but that doesn't define you. Then and the day of the test, my test was on the 7th, April 7th. So on the 5th, I went to the testing center. And I went like I was taking the test. I did the same step, because that's one of the things that you said. I did the same step that I will do on the day of the exam. I wrote a sheet of what I was going to do. I wrote my mantra. I wrote my what you call it, the feelings and the safety first feeling, then how you call, I cannot remember the acronym, my acronym. I wrote it down every day. I wrote down what will Phil do. I wrote down what will the ethics, the code of ethics will have me do on this question. And always remember, you did everything within your power to pass this test. The outcome is not up to you, because that's something that you also said. You have done everything within your power and feel proud of everything that you had done. The outcome is not up to you. So when I went to the testing center on the 5th, I went there like I was going to the exam. I went to the bathroom like you're supposed to do first and wash your hands. Then I went to them and I talked to them. They were so nice. Then the next day on the 6th, I went back again. I dressed up also as like I was going to take this test. And again, I was repeating my mantra and assessing my anxiety. Every time I got anxious, it's part of the process. That means feeling anxious doesn't mean you're not going to pass. It means that your mind knows that you're doing something that is very important to you. And it's okay. It's okay. Do not hold back. Do not disregard your anxiety. You have to acknowledge them so you can overcome them, because the more you suppress them, the more they're going to control you. So I kept acknowledging my anxiety, and it's okay. That's okay. So on the 6th, I went back, and on that day, this lady, this person was there that she was not a nice attitude, and that was good. Because on the 5th, I have really cool people, but on the 6th, I had this lady that was telling me I shouldn't be there because it wasn't my testing day. So that gave me the balance that it's okay. It doesn't matter who is there. You're not there for anyone. You're there to take a test. So on the 7th, I got up again. I prepared everything the day before because I didn't want to have anything that would give me that would add to the anxiety that was going to come up anyway. So I prepared everything, even what I was going to eat, even everything, the clothes. And then I remember this suit that was given to me by this beautiful lady that she's 90-something. That is the suit that I always use when I had an interview, and I always got the job. So I said to myself, oh, I'm going tomorrow for an interview. And this is a very very important interview of 170 questions. So I put on the suit, I drove there, I got there over an hour before, which is something that I heard from you also. The previous test, I always got there the half an hour that they recommended. But when I heard you saying that you always make it for your test, you went there an hour before, I said, oh, so I went there, I got there an hour, 15 minutes before. They let me go into the test. They let me go in, and I went through the whole process of the getting to know your test and how to navigate the computer, even though I already knew them from this is my fourth time. And right before I was going to click to start the test, I needed to go back to the bathroom. And thank God I raised my hand. I went to the bathroom. I had I felt comfortable because on the Wednesday the 7th, the kicks from Monday the 5th, they were there. So I felt comfortable to ask them questions. And one of the questions that I asked them was, if I get hot, can I pull my hair up? Can I take my jacket? And they say, yes, you can do it. Just make sure that you don't do too much movement or anything. Just do it nicely, right? So I was confident before I started the test to go to the bathroom again. Thank God I did. So I came back. I started that test. I took a deep breath. I remember reading my mantra again. I remember thinking of you again. I remember going through the process of what you're going to do. You're not going to flash more than 10 questions, and you are not going to change one single question unless you think life depends on it. So I started the test, and I went one by one. When I was about before 100 questions, I needed to go back to the bathroom, but I was running out of time. I only had about an hour left at that point. And you cannot imagine the anxiety going back up. I decided to stay there, and I continue taking, going through the questions. And some of the question I have to Zoom. I have to just Zoom because I wasn't going to have enough time. Thankfully, I knew the material for the recall question so good that when it came to the recall questions, I didn't take me more than a second to answer them. I was able to identify each of the diagnoses without any thought. It was like some of the question I didn't even have to finish them when it came to recall question. But I had a lot of macro question. I had a lot of policy question. I had a lot of everything was so long except for the recall question. All the questions were so long, and not only I have my second language. This is my second language that it takes me long. I have a learning disability that it takes me long to break down the question. So when I finished with 170 questions, I only had 8 minutes left. So what I did, the flag question, I went back to them on those 8 minutes to some of them, and I think I ended up flagging 12. And I didn't change none of them. When I looked at them, I'm not changing them. And then I called the guy when I finished that 100, when I finished flagging, and I ran out of time. By then I ran out of time. Then I called the guy because I was afraid to go in and see the result right there. So the guy, he was guiding me to where the arrow, the computer arrow, so I can click the OK and go and next and next and next. And and then it came to the passing, and I passed the test with 113 points, which I never thought of it. I just wanted to pass. Doesn't matter whether you pass with 1 point or 100 points. What matters is that you pass. It was a long process, and that was my thing. One of the things that I learned for me is going to a test like this. I couldn't just. I had to understand that the mentality behind this test. I couldn't before this time, before I found you. before I found you, I couldn't understand the mentality behind taking this test. What was why the test is set up to be that way, and finding you was the key point that I needed to be able to 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 understand the process. So I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. That last day, the on the 5th that we met on our 1-to-1, that we only went over 3 to 4 questions, and I don't know if you remember, and it was like that hour was like only 5 minutes to me, but your question was so hard. But because of those questions was what helped me break down those difficult questions during the test day. That's what I needed. Everything else helped. I'm not going to dismiss that every process helped, but yours was the point that really helped me understand what I was doing that was keeping me away from passing this test before. So thank you, Phil. Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
And it's my pleasure to be able to help. And walk me through that last session, because I remember it of you being like, Phil, I'm getting these questions wrong. Should I reschedule? And what was that like in between that of like, I'm not going to reschedule and I'm going to trust that I can walk in there and get it done? Because that last session that we had, you were like, Phil, I don't think I can do this. And it's like, what do you mean? You put in so much work to get it done. And then you got questions wrong and then started doubting yourself even more. So walk me through that process, that transition of you having that doubt and being like, Phil, I'm not really sure I'm going to walk into that exam and I'm going to grab it by the neck. What was that like?
It was understanding the process. It was understanding the process. Even though during our time together, that hour together, I was kind of breaking down that I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to pass this test. Even after the hour ended, I went back to replay the process that I went with you, that you were showing me. And I went back and I still have the questions. I still have the process in me, like it happened yesterday. I will redo the question the way you were showing me, and understanding the client. Who is the client on that question? Who is the client? Because that's one of the things that I was having a hard time. You have this question and the client is confused with everything else within the question, and then you get away from the actual client that you're helping. And it doesn't matter how good a question or the answer I should say looks like, if it's not completely pertaining to the client, it's not the answer. And that's the thing. So a client could be a single person, it could be a family, it could be a community, it could be a couple, it could be the school. Who is the client that you're serving? And that was the thing that helped me breaking down that it didn't matter how good the questions or the answer looked like. If it wasn't to help the client, it did not matter. And this test is not set to help you feel good while you're answering. It's to help you feel that you're doing the right thing for the right person, which is the client that you're serving. And believe me, during that test, I felt defeated. I felt like I was being beaten up, but I knew that each of the answers that I was speaking was for the client, because that's what I learned with you, that it needed to be focused on that person or that family or that couple, no one else. And also remembering, if the question poses anything that shows danger or injury or neglect or anything that something is going on with that client, you cannot move to to feeling. You cannot move to anything else. You have to address what's going on with that person that poses a danger, such as substance abuse or anything, before you can move and validate any feelings or do anything else. So your process, because those are the things, the question that you showed to me, they all have something like that. There was something that needed to be assessed before you could move on. And that's what really helped me. And I'm so excited. So excited. Thank you. Thank you.
And it's my pleasure to be able to help. And I appreciate you allowing me to be a part of your process, as well as willing to come back and share your experience to empower other people. Because your story is amazing, because you're amazing. And
thank you.
I can never say it enough. From the bottom of my heart, I appreciate you coming back and sharing.
Thank you. And the reason why I really wanted to share was because I participated on the free group that you did on the 27th of March, I think it was. It was a few days before my exam. And that's when I was like, wow, I'm not alone. There's a lot of people struggling with this. There was a person that had not passed the exam 7 times already. She still was struggling with passing the exam because I felt like a failure 3 times and I haven't passed this exam. Oh my God, what am I doing wrong? So when I listened to everyone else and all the time that they were struggling to pass this test, I was like, I'm not alone. This is not something, it doesn't, like Phil said, doesn't define you. You just have to keep on trying. So participating on that study group, study group, free group that you gave on the 27th of March, that was really, really helpful to help me feel the confidence that I needed to continue. And then meeting you on that one-to-one, then that really was what made it. Thank you. Thank you. God bless you. Thank you.
And same to you. And if you need anything, just drop me a shout, okay?
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. And take care, everyone, and good luck. You can do this.
I've taken the test several times and I'm having a hard time retaining the information.
Hey, yeah, so I feel like I don't really study as much as I should, honestly. And I think it also kind of comes down to like when I do study the information, I just don't really retain it. And I don't know if it's because I'm not studying enough or if it's just because it's just something, more on my end that I'm just not remembering. Because I can break down the questions and stuff like that, but it's just remembering everything.
And do you notice a theme of both of the reasons why you don't think you're getting the information?
What do you mean by that?
Because what you had just said is it's either I'm not studying enough or another reason of like, maybe I'm not doing it the right way.
Yeah, and I absolutely think it might be the right way. I say that because I feel like I thought I was a visual learner, but I feel like I'm beginning to learn more on like the audio end because I have been listening to videos and I've taken the test 2 times now. So my 3rd time is coming up this month, but there's just been, I just haven't studied, but then when I have studied, it's been more like when I'm just taking note cards and doing stuff like that, I'm not really able to just remember what I'm writing down. Because even though I write it down, I feel like I used to learn that way, but as time goes on, I don't feel like I learn that good anymore. So I'm trying to figure out like what works for me along with like videos.
But that's what I mean is the main theme that you're focusing on is inward rather than outward. You're almost saying like I'm the problem, not the processes and things that I'm doing outside. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely.
So my biggest recommendation when it comes to that is not blaming yourself, but maybe blaming the materials and the things that you're doing, as well as the amount of things you have to do outside of yourself. Because I could be wrong, but I doubt your full-time job is to study for this exam 100% of your days.
No, it's not at all. I mean, I work full time and then I have a son. So he's just turned 1. So, dealing with the first year. So I took it 2 times in the last year. So, that's extremely hard becoming a parent and then, balancing that on top of work and, trying to find the time to study. So I think like listening to what people were saying about just like studying whenever you can, like whatever works for you. I think that that's going to be important for me too, because like I have I feel like really bad testing anxiety, but also just I'm a really big procrastinator. And so I'm trying to, like, now that my test is getting closer, I'm like, okay, I really need to do more. Like, I need to do something different. And so that's why I joined the study group, because I was like, well, even if I just, listen and just hear what other people are doing, that might give me an idea of something that I can do differently than I have been.
So from that, there are two questions. It's typically three questions that I ask people, but you already answered the first one because you're like, my exam is coming up. The two other questions, the first one is, how much time do you actually have in your life to study? Whatever that amount is. So that's where I always say, like, even if it's 10 minutes over a week is an hour and 10 minutes, because 70 minutes is an hour and 10. So that's where, after you identify how much time do I have in between full-time work and raising a child, the second question is almost the most difficult for people. And I say it's the most difficult because you kind of have to call yourself out and say, if I plan to study for, let's say, 30 minutes, how much time can I actually sit or stand, depending on what you do, and actually retain and gain the information? So if you plan to study for 30 minutes, and after 10 minutes, you're getting distracted by something around you, you want to get on your phone, you're like beating up on yourself, you almost have to tone it down and say, well, I'm not studying for 30 minutes anymore. I'm studying for 10 minutes. And if 10 minutes is my cap and my 30 minutes is my goal, I'm going to start doing 3 10-minute periods sprinkled throughout the day in order to retain and gain the information. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. That's not even something that I've even really thought of, because it's just like trying to get the motivation to say, okay, I'm even going to study for 30 minutes, or, I'm going to study for 10 minutes, because I have the pocket prep. And then, like I said, I'll watch videos. So I'm doing that, like, just kind of whenever I get a chance, but it's like, I'm not actually dedicating enough time to put in the work. And that ultimately keeps, leading me to not passing, because I'm not in a place where I'm really ready to pass.
What would be the ideal amount of time?
I feel like probably, even if starting with, 30 minutes to an hour a day, if I even just got up early, before my son gets up and just says, okay, I'm going to, study this morning, and then, get him up and get ready for the day and then go to work, or even like on my lunch break, but I'm just, I haven't been prioritizing. So maybe even starting with 30 minutes would be helpful.
And let me ask you this. Why do you want to pass? Like, what would passing do for you?
It would open a lot more job opportunities for sure. And then financially as well, it definitely would increase my pay. I'm in Georgia, so there's not really a lot of opportunities here unless you have the license. So it's really important to get it in order to have a better opportunity.
And what would increased pay do for you?
Be able to continue to pay my bills, but also set my son up for, a better future, because that's really my main goal right now, is just trying to get him, everything he needs. I'm a single parent. So, just trying to prepare for him for the future is really important. So that's really where a lot of my focus is right now.
And I think every time that you're going to study, you have to picture your son.
Yeah, I agree.
Like, every time that you're like, man, do I have the energy, or do I want to study? This isn't for me. This is for my son and his future. So every time that you want to be like, man, I'm not really sure if I need to study, or I don't think I'm gaining anything, picture your son, and if he was in the same position, how you would treat him. Because I doubt you would gun for his head and beat him down and say, why aren't you doing this?
No, I wouldn't. But that's great advice, though. That's definitely something that I feel like I can move forward with and utilize, because that's not something that I have been doing. It's easier to just say, okay, I have to study, I'm dreading it. So just even reframing it and saying, like, okay, this is what I'm doing it for, and just getting that motivation that I need to even start studying is, like, really, getting into the study material is going to be important.
And knowing that even if it is 1 minute every single day, in 30 days, that is a half hour, and that's a half hour closer to getting your future where you need it to be and building that up for your son.
Yes. Thank you so much for those encouraging words.
Yeah, and that's where I think a lot of times people forget. I feel like a lot of times people forget that the little things add up to big things. Because if you are doing something little over a long period of time, it is not a little project anymore. It is big. And that's where a lot of times people think I either have to hit the home run or I have to do a million things in order to be worthy to even do it or even share. It's one step at a time, and you would never demand anything out of the realm of possibility for someone other than yourself. Why? Because you're too close to yourself. You have expectations that you would not otherwise place on other people. Specifically, if whatever you do, you're not thinking about, wow, this was great for me right now. You're thinking about, what else do I need to do in order to gain the worthiness within inside myself? So if you're feeling unmotivated to study for it, starting to view if somebody I cared about was doing the same process, would I cut their throat? Would I go for them as hard as I am on myself? And if not, you have to step outside of yourself and say, my moods and my view and attitude towards this exam or whatever goal it is at the time is actually negatively impacting the people around me, but I'm too close to myself to see how stubborn I've been, and I'm actually pushing myself away from where I need to be going because I'm beating myself down, I'm running myself into the ground, and I'm not remembering that this isn't just about me, it's about the people that have, one, poured into me, two, that I want to pour into somebody else, and three, into myself, because you would not do the same thing to somebody that you cared about. No one would, unless you don't like them. But that's not the people that we're talking about right now. But if you're like, I really want to do this, but I'm not feeling like I'm gaining something, you have to sit yourself down and time out and say, have I done nothing to prepare for the test? No, well, I've answered X amount of questions, or I've done this, I understand this topic better. That's the goal. The goal is not to get 100% on everything. Why? Because the exam doesn't require 100%. The only thing you need to demand 100% out of is yourself. The only thing you need to demand 100% out of is yourself, and that's it. Because you would never demand more than 100% out of somebody else. Most times, people are willing to accept 70% out of the people around them and give people grace. Well, that person is stressed out. That person's doing this. That person's doing that. Let me pick up the slack for that person, but you're not willing to pick up the slack for yourself or give yourself slack. That is the stuff that tends to get people down, is they compare themselves to somebody else, or they compare themselves to who they think they should be. They don't embrace who they actually are today, and they dream about tomorrow. And you can't get back today. So that's where the incremental progress, or giving yourself grace and or affirmation for even willing to show up to the exam and put a thought towards studying, rather than being like, I need to do 100% or I'm out. I either do 100% or I'm out. Nothing in life do you demand 100% out of 100% of your days. Most times, people will give 100% at the beginning, but over time fade. But then beat up on themselves for not doing 100% of what they wanted to do that entire time. Rather than if they're like, I'm just going to put thought to this and do as much as I can each day, you're going to be more consistent. You're going to be more intentional. You're going to be more deliberate. So that way, when you're in the exam, it's not, oh my gosh, I know nothing. I need to stand up and run outside of this. It's, I'm not going to know everything, but I know enough, and I am enough because they're letting me sit for the exam, and I've done everything that I can. And if I do not pass the exam, I will assess from there, but I'm not going to self-assess so much that I paralyze myself in order to not give 100% when I'm actually there. Those are things that you can remind yourself of. I am going to put focus on the things that I want in life, but I'm not going to beat up myself for not getting it because I don't create the timeline. The only thing that I can do is delegate my time in order to put it in line to create a timeline that I envision, but things can go away from it, and it's okay. Those are things that if you're feeling unmotivated or that you're not gaining things, not beating up on yourself or saying, I'm not doing enough or I'm not enough. It's, I'm doing enough with what I know and what I have. I may need additional things that can help supplement, but I do not need to throw a dynamite stick into the basement and blow up the house. What I need to do is throw all my effort into the project so that way when I walk into the exam, I blow it up and then it's a destruction and I get what I want, which is to win. But you do not get to winning without practicing. So you need to practice how you want to perform. And a lot of times people are like, Phil, I'm going to fake it until I make it. Try and fake it on the exam and see what happens. I would rather have somebody fail over and over and over and over and over and over and over in practice. So that way they sharpen their skills. They're like, dang, I'm doing well. Than to perform 100% and get 100% on practice exams and then walk into the exam and get murdered. And then to be like, I didn't do it enough. It's maybe the strategies, maybe the techniques, maybe the time, maybe the exam you got, but you have to give yourself credit for everything you've done. Not beat up on yourself and then question yourself. So that's what I would say to how do I mobilize myself to, one, get motivated, but two, also recognize the progress and things that I've made. Does that make sense?
Yes. Thank you so much.
It is my pleasure. And if you need anything, just drop me a shout.